Hello. Welcome to Paradigm Shift with me, your host, Matt, aka Red Feather. Tonight's going to be a doozy. There's a potential tornado outbreak occurring right now in the south. Currently, there's a bunch of supercell thunderstorms in eastern Arkansas and Louisiana along the Mississippi, with at least two warned storms right now. Tornado warning, at least radar indicated. I'm tuned into Ryan Hall over on YouTube here. We'll check him out real quick. And he does great weather coverage. If you let's listen to him. There you go. So currently 3 counts. Let's go over here and look at the space weather. What's going on? Oof, 24 hours. We had a severe storm last night, which caused amazing auroras all over the lower latitudes and mid latitudes of the United States of America. Completely unexpected. That's something we need to talk about because it's pretty alarming. A G-class storm is not the biggest. It's rated as severe, but it's definitely not like a big nasty one that we would expect to cause aurora borealis over places like Shenandoah, Virginia. That's indicative of something else. That's indicative of, as I understand it, the weakness of our magnetic field. It's very weak. It has to be to allow that. Anyways, G4 storm alert on 24 March, 4:41. Influence continues and geomagnetic response escalated to the storm at 12:04. So last night around midnight. Let's go. Coronal mass ejections. Let's play it. Ooh, we got a comment or something out here. What's this giant spaceship thingy? I guess there's a little one that kicked off the south side of the sun there. Could be Earth facing, hard to tell from that angle. Let's go back. And this is Ben Davison's website, spaceweathernews.com. Hey, what's up, bro? Okay. Hey, so I got my my shit together a little bit more tonight. I don't know. The latency appears to be lagging a little bit as I'm looking. My latency too. I'm on beer number 2. So, cheers, salute. Yeah, there you go. This podcast is sponsored by Stella Artois. Last night was sponsored by beer, so or coffee. Good to see you, bro. Thanks for tuning in. Anyways, we got some pretty severe shocks last night. He talked about it this morning. I kind of want to go over here and look at what's happening down here on the Earth. Let's look at floods first. Turkey, 14 dead, 5 missing. This was 16 March. They got hit with also the earthquakes, which were devastating. Killed over, I think, 30,000 people, I want to say. Might have been upgraded to 50,000. It might have been the most deadly earthquake many of us have ever seen. That's for sure. Oh, yeah, dude. Ryan's always it's coming for you. I'm up here on the mountaintop in West Virginia, so you wouldn't think that we get severe weather, but we do. Out my window right here in front of me, I've witnessed some hellacious thunderstorms and lightning storms come across because I can see almost to the Great Lakes. I'm so high. Basically, that mountain in the background, that's what I'm on top of right up there. And that's where I live, but just that way. Yeah. Fucking A. If you can't drink a beer, then quit smoking cigarettes. That's good. Okay. 180,000 displaced, 200 still missing in Cyclone Freddy floods. Holy shit. Malawi. Okay. Brazil, 8 killed. Homes destroyed after landslide in Manaus, Amazons. Brazil, 3 people killed in landslide. Hundreds displaced after floods. Syria, floods cause severe damage. The latest ones, it appears, were recently in March, and then we go out to California. And that is on the headline news right here on the big guns. It talks about California lake refilling. Whoop. 12 hours ago from the LA Times, worry and suspicion reign as once dry Tulare Lake drowns California farmland. What? Hope you got your kayaks and your paddles and your flotation devices and whatnot out there, guys. 6th Avenue used to cut through miles of farmland. Now the road has disappeared under muddy water. Its path marked by sodden telephone poles that protrude from the swelling lake. Water laps just below the windows of a lone farmhouse that sits alongside the submerged route. To give you an idea of what's possible, let's go back in history. Sacramento floods. I guess I should put in history. (1986, 95, 97, 2006, 2017). What are the worst floods in Sacramento history? 6 of the worst storms and floods. The deadly 1862 California flood. Here we go. Got to look back to the 1800s. As I said on my last, I was talking about Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and the greatest flood catastrophe of American history. That was in the 1880s. Now we're looking at the deadly 18th that wiped out and reshaped the state. This was published in SF Gate by Katie Dowd, January 11th, 2022. Like every day that month, it was raining when Leland Stanford awoke on the morning of his inauguration. Just look at that picture. People are literally, it's like Venice. Hey, good on you, man. Shadow, good on you. The storm pounded the roof of his Sacramento mansion as soon the governor, dressed in a neat and ate at a leisurely breakfast. A scan of the newspaper brought only troubles. Californians bitterly split between Union and Confederacy, and reports of floods in every corner of the state. Again, the fractal of history. Normally, Stanford could walk the short distance to the brand new state capitol building, but that day, January 10th, 1862, on the most intrepid or desperate soul would try. So Stanford got into a rowboat and floated wave upon wave to the Capitol. Later, the water still rising, the entire legislature packed and fled to San Francisco. Nearly every house and farm over this immense region is gone. America has never before seen such desolation by flood. One local wrote in a letter to a family back east. Many houses have partially toppled over. Some have been carried from their foundation. Several streets are blocked up with houses that have floated in, and dead animals lie about here and there. A dreadful picture. I don't think the city will ever rise from the shock. I don't see how it can. Californians live with the specter of being one, but many don't realize the one may not be. 160 years ago, the biggest flood in modern history wiped out California. 4,000 dead, 1/3 of all property destroyed, 1/4 of the state's 800,000 cattle drowned or starved. California went so utterly bankrupt that its governor, legislature, and state employees didn't draw a paycheck for 18 months. The newly installed telegraph system fizzled, just the tops of the poles visible under feet of water, and roads were impassable. Eggs cost $3 a dozen. That's $79 adjusted for inflation today. If you thought that's supply chain issues and inflation were rough now, just wait until this gets going. The catastrophe began with the snowstorm in the Sierra. In early December 1861, upwards of 15 feet of snow fell in California's eastern mountains. What followed, modern National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration researchers believe was a series of atmospheric rivers for 40 days that kept coming, bringing warm rain and high winds. All the fresh Sierra snow melted, turning frozen creeks into a raging river as the water poured downstream. The disaster struck the Sierra towns first as rivers overflowed their banks. The churning floodwaters devoured everything in sight. Every last bridge in El Dorado County washed away, taking with it ferry boats and mills. Several towns washed away overnight. Chinese immigrants who were already banished and living in worse parts of town were disproportionately affected. Entire communities drowned in minutes. A fact met with characteristic callousness by white publications. Okay, obviously, the Great Flood was racist to the San Francisco journalists, but we'll just forgive them. They know not what they do. The Folsom Telegraph thinks that those journalists who have centered many of their energies against Chinese immigration ought to be shocked at the superiority of water over their spirit in decreasing the Chinese nuisance. The paper joked. For it is not to be doubted that 2,000 or 3,000 Chinamen have perished in California since the commencement of the present rainy season. Good Lord. Okay. Just want to, side note, I do the Wim Hof method and take cold showers and ice baths and stuff, and started, I don't know, like a month ago in earnest. And I took a nice long cold shower before this, and I'm like, my body is like right now. So I don't know if that translates or not, but just a little shivery until I get warmed up. Back to it. Water began pooling on every surface, destroying roads, seeping into homes, and smothering flora and fauna. Sacramento to the San Joaquin Valley, a distance 300 miles long by 20 miles wide. Wow. That's a lot. Was completely underwater. In the Central Valley, flooding was up to 30 feet deep. From the Sierra Nevada to the Coast Range is apparently one sheet of yellow rippling water, the Marysville Appeal wrote. Flooding is seen in Yuba County during the 1860s. I don't know, the Microsoft Bing thing takes over on its own. I don't like using it, but the browser's been a little less sketchy than Chrome was. So after weeks of rain, the earth could absorb no more. Water began pooling on every surface, destroying roads, seeping into homes, and smothering flora and fauna. Sacramento to the San Joaquin Valley, a distance 300 miles long by 20 miles wide, was completely underwater. In the Central Valley, flooding was 30 feet deep. Okay, no, I just read that, but I read it again because that's impressive. To the north, snow, melt, and rain combined to sweep through the burgeoning settlements near present-day Redding. From the head settlement, Weaverville, to the mouth of the Trinity River for a distance of 150 miles, everything was swept to destruction. History, John Carr recalled in his 1891 book, Pioneer Days in California, not a bridge was left, or a mining wheel, or a sluice box. Parts of ranches and miners' cabins met with the same fate. The labor of hundreds of men and their savings of years invested in bridges, mines, and ranches were all swept away. In 48 hours, the Valley of the Trinity was left desolate. Conditions were equally bad in Sacramento, the town that was no stranger to floods, nestled in the confluence of the Sacramento and American rivers. The area flooded almost every year, but this was unlike anything residents had ever seen. A levee built to keep water out proved to be too short for the catastrophic storm. Water first poured in, then it stayed in, turning Sacramento into a watery punch bowl. The first floor, that's got to be similar to what happened in New Orleans and Katrina. Water first poured in, then it stayed in, turning it into a watery punch bowl. The first floors of just about every home and building in town were inundated. Sidewalks ceased to exist. The only viable method of transportation for weeks was a rowboat. Those who survived next faced starvation as livestock, farms, and trade disappeared overnight. Many stubborn farmers with nothing left but the plot of land somewhere beneath their feet refused to leave. We go on. There was some respite, relatively speaking, in the Bay Area, although the deluge overtook nearly every community there, too. The impact was not as prolonged. The state legislature briefly relocated to San Francisco, which saw the upside to its many hills for the first time. From this lofty perch, they witnessed life slow to a halt. Rails, portions of fences, gates, lumber, saw logs, everything buoyant enough for the greedy water may be seen passing downstream. The Napa Daily reporter wrote, the man named L.H. Powell recalled his journey from San Jose to San Francisco. It took 36 hours to navigate the sodden roads. As he went, he saw bodies floating past him in the swollen creeks. He stopped, he said, to retrieve the body of a boy and leave it where his parents might find him. Now, I hope when I'm reading this and we're learning about this tragic flood, that this isn't what happens. But my faith and confidence in the emergency management and the authorities of California to handle said catastrophic flooding is not the greatest. And looking at tropical tidbits for the long-range weather forecast, it's clear that they have another train a coming. It's not over yet. And they've got 50 feet of snow that still has to melt. So where's it going to go? Already, as we were just reading, the Tulare Lake is refilling and people are getting disgruntled. We'll go back and finish reading that article, but I wanted to shine light on what can actually happen. A quarter of the economy had been destroyed in the course of a month, and more than you want to talk recession, it's right there. That would cause a recession. California is responsible for a vast majority of the country's agriculture, for instance, and that area. It'd be devastating. More than $3.1 billion in damage had been done, dwarfing the $235 done from the 1906 earthquake over 40 years later. Wow. Well over 10 times the amount. Confidence in the future is gone. The Placer Herald wrote, "Build our Babylonian towns as high as we may, the heavens are yet above and beyond us." Let's see. Native Americans weren't surprised. Their oral traditions told them such an event was not uncommon in California history. Yeah. Said they weren't just foolish, dumb savages. Of course not. But in the aftermath of the Great Flood, Sacramento decided to boost the entire town. Over the course of the next decade, every business and home in the flood zone rebuilt up to 10 feet higher. Some did this by adding landfill. Others jacked up existing buildings, and many just turned their first floor into a basement. The system of raising its buildings has its advantages, Mark Twain quipped in 1869. It makes the floor shady, and this is something that is great in such a warm climate. It also enables the inquiring stranger to rest his elbows on the second-story windows and look in and criticize the bedroom arrangements of all the citizens. Yeah, right on, right on. No, okay. Sacramentans walk over the skeleton of their city. If you want a glimpse at what remains, you can book a tour with the Sacramento History Museum. All right. Now we go over here to tropical tidbits, and we carry on, and we can look at forecast models. And here we're looking at the GFS model, and we're going to just play this forward into the future. And we're also looking at another atmospheric river sort of train of moisture coming up here, which I think could cause some flooding through Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, Ohio, River Valley area, Mississippi River Valley. Nothing like the moisture that's coming California this year, though. Let's play this and see what happens. Look right up here is the date. So pause it. It's the 27th. Whoops. Whoa, that's ground flow data. Nice. Very much wind shear. Okay. So let me scroll this back. So it looks like Wednesday of next week, the 29th, they're going to get hit again. They're going to get hit hard. The intensity, there's more snow up here, several more feet, maybe another 3 feet of snow, 4 feet of snow perhaps, and tons of rain, another 2 or 3 inches of rain to 4 inches of rain, maybe higher in some locations. Same thing, get 2 or 3 inches of rain up here in my locale, West Virginia. It's been pouring all damn day here, cold rain, just pouring down. We'll let it go. A big snowstorm materializes across the northern Midwest, bringing a huge wet swath to the New England area with little thunderstorms in the south. Then another wave of moisture and snow comes through behind that for the Northeast. And we get a little moisture and some storms pop up out of the Gulf, but it stays clear for a good while after that. Okay. Oh, it looped on me, huh? March 29th, 30th. Let's pause it right there. Yeah. Pretty nasty band of thunderstorms coming into Tennessee area, Nashville area, Saturday, April the 1st, with looks like an ice storm and some heavy snow on the backside of this sucker up in is that Green Bay, Wisconsin, or Minnesota? Both those states are going to get some for sure. All right. So you know what you're in for, California, more of the same, but then it clears out as this moisture starts to take a track more into the Rocky Mountains and kind of leave you guys a little bit of breathing room. All right. Let's go to the Solar Dynamics Observatory. Take a look at the sun. 171, 211 angstroms. We've got some interconnection here that looks like it could pop off, and two of these are facing us. This grouping right here is especially dangerous. To look at the polarity on those to really see. Oh, and this blob up here doesn't look good either. But really what we're looking at when we analyze the sun like this is the tropics of the sun, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, or rather Capricorn and Cancer. And these are storms. This is weather. It's rotating, it's undulating, it's circulating, and this is the jet stream of the sun, similar to the Earth. If you watch it rotate on a long time scale, because it's so much larger than the Earth, so you got to watch it longer, you really get a clear image of what's taking place. We're just seeing a little snapshot of it, but we definitely feel the effects. I think coronal mass ejections are maybe something similar to like a sprite or an elf or something like that, where the top of the storm, the lightning shoots off and up out into outer space and creates a cascade effect. It's basically cold fusion in nature. Awesome. Hey, 2 people still watching, 2 thumbs up. Nice. We're doing great for a 5-year hiatus. Thanks for watching, guys, and bearing with me. Crisscrossing lunar transit pick of the week. Let's see that. It looks pretty sweet. On March 6th, the SDO observed a long lunar transit with a twist. The shadow of the moon in SDO's images first touched the limb of the sun at 5 p.m. Eastern on March 6th, 5-6. Those are some gematria numbers right there if you listen to Zach. And yeah, he has a Gematria Effects Sports and Gematria Effect News on YouTube. You should check him out. I think he's live right now too. We could go over there. Let's pop in and see what Zach's up to. Wonder what he's thinking about. Because he was talking about March Madness. Yeah, it's madness, all right. Pluto's entering Aquarius. Nobody likes death. It's the thing that everybody's avoided, like at all costs. Studying the subconscious, but it makes them mad. It's what creates the neuroses in the world. As a professional shaman, that's my determination. Not really. Okay, so let's see what he's got to say, man. Zach is a genius. His memory is incredible. I give him so much credit. He's just like, I'm a Rain Man. I just dropped a bunch of things on the floor and he's counting them on the ground. Hail to all the autists out there. Hail to the autists. All right, guys. I'm chilly. I'm putting on My magic suit. All right. Oh my God, my body disappeared. That's much better. 201. 201. One second. They do that. The announcers always do that in the games. They bring up little quirks and quagmires like, "Oh, this is too good. You couldn't script it. It's so good." I don't know if it's scripted or not. It seems to be the case, but sports gambling and stuff like that, it seems like if you can have an edge, good. Oh, you couldn't hear Zach? Huh. Um, damn it. Okay. Well, oh, I know what it is. I think it's because I have it selected to not play computer sounds. So it's probably just my microphone that is picking up. Anyways, he's just rambling about who's going to win, Gonzaga and Creighton or Indiana. Let me figure that out. Let me figure that out. Shared. Okay, so boom. Okay. I'm gonna just go to myself here real quick. Give me a moment and I'll get this squared away. Okay, computer sounds. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into it next time. Let's see what the old Google's got to say. You guys can watch me troubleshoot this baby on the fly. What are we doing again? We can hear you, not the vid though. That's what I thought. Yeah, it's let me see. I'm using a new system I started practicing with last night, and yeah, okay. It seems to be working pretty good, but I don't know all the little ins and outs of it yet. And it probably tried to remind me of something like this and asked me if I wanted to fix it. So I'm going to see if I can. How to turn sound on. Screencasting. Whatever. Let's try it one more time. I'm going to mute my mic and see what it does. Yeah, Steph Curry made the three popular. You like watching me fucking squirm. I'm like, what do I do? Oh God. Anyways, just keep trucking. Gotta reinvent yourself, man. And I'm not giving up for this shit. If I can sit through a 20-minute ice bath, I can handle a little pressure on the internet. You guys don't necessarily need to hear Zach. That was just on a whim. You're here for me. So here we go. Funny as shit, though. News about California lake refilling. Worrying suspicion rain as once dry Tulare Lake drowns. Before and after satellite images show California reservoirs fill. California will use floodwater to recharge groundwater. Good thinking, guys. California storms reservoirs are filling quickly. How California's winter rains will revive Tulare Lake. March 15th. Let's go and get some images up here. Nothing too impressive yet. I love the satellite images, though. Let's take another toke, and stare at that for a while. Just trip out on the fractal of everything. I love watching the Electric Universe guys, and Andrew Talbot is one of my people I've learned a lot from with the fractal nature in the Electric Universe. And this could have been carved out by a giant electric storm. I think it's all kind of correlated, but I don't think that, for instance, the Grand Canyon was carved by water over a long period of time. Not at all. That, just looking at that, we can go over to Google Earth and look at that in a minute. That is wild, dude. It'll blow your mind. Anyways, this is a news program tonight. All right. Last night I talked about India as getting I talked about India as getting more draconian too, and they put Rahul Gandhi. They're locking him up for something that he said. That's kind of the extreme draconian measures we're going through. I'm going to see what WION here, which is an Indian news outlet similar to Al Jazeera or RT, which I both have up here. We're going to look through all of the way the headlines are projected in other locations around the world to see, and then we'll scroll through the Twitter feed. We'll look at Elon Musk's Twitters. There's a video on there of the late John McAfee that I wanted to play regarding government censorship here. And I think that's going to be interesting. And then we're also going to take a stop over at the Giza Death Star podcast of Sir Joseph Farrell and listen to his take at what's going on with the banking system. And we'll get around. Biden says China hasn't yet delivered arms to Russia. Hasn't yet. So Russia's also getting castrized, carterized. I can't come up with the right word, but condemned by India for not delivering the guns in time because they're blowing them all up in Ukraine. Hence the war of attrition and the theme we were talking about last night. And this World War III thing is escalating. I was watching earlier today a good video of a guy from the Edgar Casey, Arizona channel, and it was entitled roughly Aquarius in the Age of Armageddon. And this guy was talking in 2021. I think it was December 2021. He was spot on with everything. And granted, we had a year already to be aware of what was going on, but he was on point with what's happening and now how much more inflation has taken over and everything. And that's what's happening. This is the unveiling of an age, the end of one age and the beginning of another in a lot of different ways, man. Brazil ex-President Bolsonaro hands over undeclared Saudi gifts worth thousands of dollars to authorities. Kim Jong-un's daughter wears Christian Dior 2800 jacket at missile launch. Ooh, fancy. I wonder if all the people in North Korea are eating rice or steak. Oh, I got a 5-0 coming down the mountain over there right now. Netanyahu softens legal overhaul. Protests continue. That may be worth a look, a listen. And let's just take a peek at what Al Jazeera has presented. Hotel Rwanda hero Paul Rusesabagina freed from prison. So this guy right here, this is interesting. He was serving 25 years in Rwanda on terrorism charges. He was freed on Friday. He was a hero The hero's family filed $400 million suit against the government. Rwanda has to investigate the killings of the opposition members. Ooh, this sounds good. Let's read a little bit of that. 25-year sentence. He was portrayed as a hero in the Hollywood film Hotel Rwanda and was serving a 25-year sentence in the country on terrorism charges. He's free from prison after having his sentence commuted by the presidential order. He's 68 years old. There's your numbers again. He was accompanied by a United States Embassy official as he was moved from prison to the residence of Qatar's ambassador in the Rwandan capital, Kigali, late on Friday, according to two senior officials of U.S. President Joe Biden's administration. No one should be under any illusion about what this means, as there's no consensus that serious crimes were committed for which they were convicted. Okay, a lot of legalese talk there. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken issued a statement welcoming the release, although U.S. officials said there were no promises made to Kigali beyond public recognition of their move. It is a relief to know that Paul is rejoining his family, and the U.S. government is grateful to the Rwandan government for making this reunion possible. We also thank the government of Qatar for their valuable assistance. That will enable Paul's return to the United States. Oh, wow. Okay, so they got him out of jail, and they're bringing him home. What were the supposed charges of terrorism? I'm just curious about that, but we won't go down that rabbit hole too deeply. Snowflakes are saying the French are getting clamped down on a little too hard. I don't know. It's to be expected. They're over there protesting with fireworks and Roman candles versus New World Order riot police. 1 + 1 does not equal 2. Okay. Sorry. There may be hundreds or thousands or maybe millions of them that show up. And that's, in my opinion, the only way that they could be successful in any sense or semblance of it is to take over the city via population. Millions of people need to descend on Paris en masse, or the capital, everywhere, and just take over and occupy everything and stay there until they get some until they get 1 second. All right. Until they get some relief from the government for their grievances, redress. Kremlin explains why Russia will snub Earth Hour. Russia ally sides with war crimes court. Scholz says no reason for concern as German largest bank shares slump. School president quits after calling Ukrainian refugees privileged robbers. Oh, yeah. Okay. UK court rules waterboarding was used during the Troubles. Brazil to propose Ukraine peace club with China media. Seymour Hersh makes new Nord Stream sabotage claim. Ooh, let's read that one. India cuts off internet for millions to catch single person. This is a good one. This is one I was looking for last night right here. India cuts off internet for millions to catch a single person. The manhunt for separatist leader Amritpal Singh continues. Look at that guy. He's just a cool guy. You know, the Singhs are really, Sikhs are really interesting and pretty badass dudes, in my opinion. So, Indian police have shut down the internet in the Punjab region as part of an operation to apprehend a separatist leader. The initiative began late last weekend, and while the manhunt for Amritpal Singh is ongoing, the online restrictions were mostly lifted on Tuesday, according to official reports. This was part of the police's attempt to apprehend Singh, the leader of the Waris Punjab Day organization, which calls for the creation of the Khalistan, an independent Sikh state. To arrest him, the authorities have deployed various measures across the whole state of the Punjab. Including installing roadblocks and banning protests and any mass gatherings. This recording will be deleted after it's posted about 5 days. You got about 5 days. Just kidding. The police also shut down internet access and SMS service for the region's residents to prevent any incitement to violence and disturbance of peace and public order. Sound familiar? These are the same tactics that occur all over the world. This is the 5th generation warfare. They can control your electronic communication. You know, they can cut off the supply lines, so to speak, the information supply lines That's it. Singh gained notoriety when he led an armed protest at a police station in Ajnala, a small town in the Punjab. In February, hundreds of his followers stormed the building with guns and swords, demanding the release of Lovepreet Tufan Singh, who they believe was wrongfully accused of a kidnapping. It was the event was the trigger for the current manhunt against him, with the police accusing him of Waris Punjab Day of anti-national activities. Okay, and it goes on, and they connect him with another man, and the whole separatist movement with the farmers and their resistance to the tyranny. Okay, let's go over here and check out what Joseph P. Farrell has to say about things in the banking system, particularly at Wells Fargo. And this is over on GizaDeathStar.com, entitled "The Glitch Ex Machina Once Again, this time at Wells Fargo." Since everyone's attention appears to be focused on the meltdown of Silicon Valley, you might want to pay attention to this story spotted and shared by VT. Indeed, I suspect that those people entertaining the hypothesis that the meltdown was in part being driven by certain factions with Mr. Globaloni's cabal to create a climate of opinion for ushering in central bank digital currencies is true. Everyone's, been discussing that. Such a currency, it will be argued, would give central banksters the moment-by-moment surveillance capability to ensure that such banks do not indulge in such risky behavior in the future, and that it is an essential step to safeguard and stabilize the system. Except, of course, that we've heard all this nonsense from central bankers before. Just recall the American financial crisis of the early 1900s and the secretive meeting at Jekyll Island, and gave us the likes of the Federal Reserve. Yeah. I was just looking at visiting Jekyll Island down there. It was really nice. It was like 80 in February. Gorgeous 85. That may sound like a bit of an oversimplification. At the secretive meeting, Jekyll Island, that gave us the likes of, which is neither federal nor a reserve, but it sounded nice and was a name the banksters could sell to the American public via the progressive lackey in the White House, Woodrow Wilson. That may sound like a bit of an oversimplification of what happened, and perhaps it is, but not by much and within a few tolerable decimal points and margin of error. Those same people also gave you the income tax, World War I, and a bloated and burgeoning federal government that has bombed, burned, bloated, bragged, and defrauded its way into the unresponsive monster that it is now, incapable of winning any war or trust. Well, if you're tempted by the idea of central bank digital currencies, you need to stop and ponder this story and the implications for a financial system determined to go, quote, all in on central bank digital currencies. Now, I love his, quote, high-octane speculations. Joseph is really on point. Let's see. No one wonders just what Wells Fargo was doing with that money during the miraculous glitch ex machina. This is an old bankster's trick. Use the period of the float to make money off of other people's money. It's that period between when a deposit is made at a bank and the deposit clears at that bank. It's the period that banks tell you these funds will not be available for 3 days. What they're not telling you is that oftentimes, in today's digital age, a deposit oftentimes clears in a matter of seconds. Leave the bank free to play with your money for those 3 days. Now, add a central bank digital currency to this process. Your deposit may not clear for several days, the number of days to be determined by how good or bad a little boy or girl you've been in supporting whatever paradigm or policy or behavior that the banksters want supported. Or suppose just as you're about to make that digital payment at the automated checkout line for your weekly allowed ration of climate-affirming synthetic meat, the system is taken down by the ET mothership. See last Wednesday's blog. And he's referencing some funny stuff there regarding them talking about this Oumamau is its name. Oumamau, the mothership, also known as the interstellar comet of unknown origins, of asteroids and the pentagram's mothership. That sounds good. Sometimes when reading the articles people send me, I can just not resist the impulse to draw connections between them, even though there's nothing in the articles themselves to indicate any connection, but connections there are in this instance. So you might recall the story a few days ago where more technocrats at the pentagram were speculating that, quote, motherships of extraterrestrials might be in the solar system launching small recon probes. The other story out there concerns a brief article about NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART mission, may be having to be used for real against a possible killer asteroid supposedly headed this way in 2046. All these articles are courtesy of TS and TL. As many others of you who have noticed, both stories are passed along by them. I rather suspect many of you who did so are also thinking of the connection between them that forms today's high-octane speculation. NASA might have to take out a killer asteroid sooner than it realized. Most of us on the website are familiar with the affidavit of Dr. Carol Rosen, a former professional associate of Dr. Werner von Braun at Fairchild Industries. Years ago, Dr. Rosen gave an affidavit to Dr. Stephen Greer for inclusion in his book, Disclosure, in which she stated that von Braun had outlined the program for the weaponization of space to her. There would be 5 phases to the program, with each phase escalating the danger and the need to put weapons in space. Phase 1, communists. We would have to weaponize space to defend ourselves against attack by the communist bloc. Think Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative or Star Wars program. Phase 2, terrorists. We'd have to defend ourselves from attack by terrorist organizations that somehow got a hold of sophisticated weapon systems without, of course, explaining how they managed to do that. Phase 3, nations of concern, like Iran and North Korea. Think of the Bush stupid axis of evil statement here, and you get the idea. Phase 4, killer asteroids, where we'd have to erect a planetary defense system able of shunting asteroids out of their trajectories to potential collision with Earth, and failing that, destroy them. In either case, we'd have to be able to track them accurately and target them, which is NASA's DART mission, and what it did. Recently, we saw that, knock that asteroid off course. Note that, folks, because after years of public news, discussion, and articles about, quote, the asteroid threat, humanity finally and demonstrably did it. Of course, that nascent capability would be severely tested if someone decided to hurl a bunch of asteroids at the Earth all at once in a sort of great asteroid bombardment. Shades of Carlos Allende in the Varro edition of Morris Jessup's The Case for the UFO. Anyways, yeah. So maybe they know there's something coming this way. They don't want to let people know. They're ramping it up. Some people might want to call that Planet X or Nibiru. Let's hop over here and see what John McAfee's got to say. I'm going to mute my microphone and play his. If you're listening, tell me if you can hear him or not, please. 1 second here. Well, this is posted by Ian Miles Chong on Twitter. He's sharing it, I imagine, from somewhere else. But the late John McAfee explains the real reason for the crackdown on TikTok. Elon Musk says, interesting take. How's everybody doing tonight? Personally, I know I was up late last night because of all the activity, solar storm activity. Well, that's not working. I gave it a minute. Let's go over here, and now mainstream media is catching on. This is from Business Insider by Magunot something Marion. The sun is getting more active than it has for a decade, and it could lead to power outages, grounded flights, and stunning auroras. Oh, yeah, they're realizing, hey, we're coming into solar maximum, and these are the dangers. And just as I showed you a minute ago, look at those sunspots facing Earth. Goodness gracious. Got to be good. Not enough time to be anything else. Hey, look at that. That's what's up. That's what's up. Positive mental attitude will get you everywhere with me. Because I'm an asshole part of the time, and you got to be positive about it. The sun is waking up after almost a decade of relative calm. Yeah, it was a solar minimum. And we're going into grand solar minimum, I believe. Yeah, I love the giant happy face. This was epic. That was so epic. A peculiar formation of sunspots. No, it's a big happy face. It's like obvious as hell. The I'm trying to think of the cartoon character it reminds me of. Like Pac-Man or something. Yeah. Anyways, the sun's poles are flipping, and that's what's leading to the weakening of Earth's magnetic field. And if we go and check out Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch project and magnetic reversal news and some of the stuff he's talked about on his channel, you would see there's a clear connection between speciation and extinction events. So coming into it's called punctuated equilibrium. Hey, come here, man. You can come. Yeah. Yeah, the end of an age. It's Armageddon, man. It's punctuated. And we look back at the fossil record and we see that massive amounts of stuff dies off when the field goes down. And the DNA changes can occur. And there's nothing any of us can do about it. Oh, good girl. My youngest, or not my youngest, my next to my youngest just came in and sat down and started reading her books. I keep them in extra play space in my bedroom/office because I have 4 kids, and it's what you got to do when they're all under 5 years old. So the big ball of plasma heated at its center, the plasma, which is made of charged particles. I love how they dumb this stuff down for people. Understanding the magnetic sun. Hey, that's good. Let's check this video out. I'm going to go ahead and unmute. You're looking at the magnetic field and the polarity of the sun. Saying it's a magnetically driven, electrically driven. It's part of a galactic and intergalactic and intragalactic current system of Birkeland currents. Think of nested spheres, just like the rings of the magnetic field that's shown around the planet, nested spheres. So they're using the term magnetically connected, and it's electromagnetically. Why do they want to shun electricity? Let's look up a quote by Thomas Jefferson about what electricity was. Not Jefferson, I'm sorry, Thomas Edison. Although I'm sure Thomas Jefferson had a quote about what he thought electricity was too. Maybe we can put them side by side, but Edison's quote is the one I was going for. Quote on electricity. Yeah, I didn't spell it. We will make electric light so cheap that only the wealthy can afford it. Rather, quote about what electricity is. He believed that sunshine, wind, and tides should be employed to generate energy for you. Okay. 10,000, many of life's failures. It's not the one I was looking for. What a source of power. Yeah, the sun is a limitless source of power, but it's depending on how we're going to harness it. Here's the thing, though. The earth supplies limitless and abundant amounts of energy in the form of abiotic oil in a natural and abundant mineralization process, hear me out, called serpentinization. So the mantle where the earth is separating or coming together and all of it is exposed to water and different pressure, well, it creates a whole system of reactions, a chain reaction. Hydrothermal vents are created. Biotic life, I think, may come out of it, like bacteria and other things, extremophiles. But what is for sure is it creates a chain leading, and the extremophiles are actually important in this chain too for the creation of more complex hydrocarbons, but things like methane, natural gas, that's what it is, natural gas, is produced abundantly in this process of serpentinization as a byproduct. It produces heat and hydrocarbons as the one rock, olivine, transforms, it metamorphoses. So this is perfect time to discuss that metamorphosis, the age of death and dying and rebirth. The earth is constantly metamorphosing itself and creating oil and hydrocarbons in the process. And when we realize that and we can tap into it and realize the abundance of it, that we're not going to run out of, quote, oil or natural gas or anything, we can begin to extract it in more smart ways and then use hybridized engines to increase the efficiency of the resource exponentially for everybody. So we all can travel more frequently, whenever we want, wherever we want, and have a lower impact on the atmosphere as far as pollution is concerned. Let's be honest about that too. Nobody likes to inhale a tailpipe or see litter on the ground or people trashing the environment. But we also don't want to be neurotic and like ludicrous about it and try to corral all ourselves into itty bitty little tiny boxes and think that we are also not part of nature. Now, serpentinization is very real, and it will, I believe, provide the path forward to Earth's abundant energy needs. Once we get to the paradigm shift of understanding that, yeah, oil is not a finite resource. And this goes hand in hand with another topic that I want to discuss, and I would like to talk with Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch about, because he's the only other person that I've seen that's discussed it, and it is right here. Is the book, but it's The Expanding Earth. It came to me in an epiphany one day. I was just like, I was thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, the Earth must be expanding. And sure enough, so this book right here is called Development in Geotectonics, and it was published by S. Warren Carey. And Development in Geotectonics, Volume 10, was a publication, scientific publication. And S. Warren Carey was a professor, and his published work in this publication is entitled The Expanding Earth. Department of Geology, University of Tasmania, Hobart, Tasmania, New York, 1976. Development of Expanding Earth Concept, Necessity for Expansion, The Subduction Myth, Definitions, Face of the Earth, Scale of Tectonic Phenomenon, Non-Uniformitarianism, Tectonic Profile, Paleomagnetism, Asymmetry of the Earth. He addresses all these things. And this is the guy, once you read the preface, he actually was responsible for the theory of plate tectonics. And then later in life, here in 1976, he realized, whoa, the way that it has been taken is not 100% accurate. This is what's up. Western North America, it goes over all of it. Central America, Southeast Asia, the Rift Oceans, 438. Cause of expansion, 445. Let's try and check that out. That's good. 445. Cause of the expansion. I have my own ideas and theories, but we'll see what he says here. And I promise I will figure out why the videos weren't playing, and next time they'll work. Maybe you'll watch me into the future. Okay, so cause of the expansion, page 445 in Developments in Geotectonics by S. Warren Carey. Cause of the expansion of Earth. An eminent geophysicist recently said that geology is at a stage of development comparable with that of physics before Newton. Discoveries yet to be made in geology will be as fundamental and as sweeping as those of the last 3 centuries of physics. With this, I agree, but hasten to add that fundamental discoveries yet to come in physics will also dwarf modern physics. Serpentinization, the relationship to astrobiology, extremophile biology, hydrothermal vents, deep ocean life. So much stuff is interesting about that. You have to look into the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute and Atlantis Massif under the sea, which is just southwest of the Azores a little bit, right in the smack dab middle of the Atlantic Ocean, right outside the Pillars of Hercules. It's there. It's underwater. It's there. And it's named after it, and it's the lost city. These people are ironic, and they love to rub it in our faces. It's there. That's where Atlantis is. It's not the Rorschach block in Africa. No, that is a very interesting thing in and of itself, though. Very intriguing, that whole Africa. And that just goes to show, in my opinion, massive floods that have come through and or the greening of the climate to the aridization of the climate, cyclically back and forth. When they talk about climate change, they don't really like to mention that the entire globe hardly ever sees a singular or uniform climate regime because it's spinning, it's tilted, the oceans are sloshing and rotating and swirling and generating. They have currents in them. Our atmosphere does the same thing. We're closer and further away from the sun. All sorts of things relate to that cycle. So no one point on the earth is going to experience the same climate forever, no matter what. That's impossible. And the entire earth rarely experiences a uniform climate because also that's damn near impossible given the physics of everything. So when they say climate change and they try to apply the blanket idea that the entire earth is just melting down, well, that's a lie. It may be getting warmer in some places, but it's also got to be getting really cold in others or dry. For everywhere where water is falling, water is evaporating in another location. This is a closed system, folks. It's a closed system. If you take into account the South Atlantic anomaly, though, we might be leaking some out. So it might not be completely closed, the weak hole in the magnetic field, but generally speaking, it's closed. He says, everyone has their growing pains. Oh, man, you're so kind. Oh, so philosophy. I'm interested to see what he says here. It's consideration of possible causes of expansion leads back to the womb of primary postulates of science and cosmology, or cosmogony. We must contemplate 3 concepts of mass: inertial mass, passive gravitational mass, and active gravitational mass, which are not necessarily identical and interchangeable. When we speak of expansion, we must discriminate between the expansion of space and the increase of distance between reference points in space. Universal time, sidereal time, and ephemeris time are merely alternative empirical astronomical units of time. But there is a more fundamental difference between clock time, based on any of these timekeepers, and atomic time, based on the spectral frequencies of atomic vibrations. These 2 measurements of time are equated not by definition, but they are independent. Atomic time may have pulsed more slowly than clock time in the past and may run progressively more rapidly in the future. An Archean age of, say, 3.6 billion years depends on atomic time for the numerical part and an astronomical time for its unit. The relationship of the 2 may well have changed securely over the time span involved. Now, you're having to think in some logarithmic terms there, so just use your imagination to work it out. Dirac reaches the same conclusions from his large numbers hypothesis, which implies 2 space-time metrics. One, which is unmeasurable directly, enters into the Einstein equations, which remain valid, and the other is what actually is measured in the laboratory experiments involving atomic apparatus. Does time have a beginning? Is 0 time, T0, real, or a limitation of our minds which cannot encompass infinities? If T0 is real, Is there plus minus symmetry across time? Even creation is dichotomous. McRae has said in 1964 that in evolutionary cosmology, creation is something that has happened once and for all, and that it is not itself subject to scientific discussion, but that it determines the conditions for the discussion. In steady-state cosmology, creation operates on matter continually and is hence at the foundation of current scientific analysis. But at the same time, continuous creation removes the need for initial conditions for the discussion. These two creation concepts are quite different. In considering expansion, we reach the roots of philosophy. Ooh, this is good. I didn't realize we were going to be getting to the roots of philosophy here. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please, I'm very curious about the concepts we're discussing and your ideas about them. And of our faith in the universal order. Thus, Eddington noted remarkable numerical coincidences between the relations of fundamental constants which group to give pure numbers of the order of unity, 10 to the 39th or 10 to the 78th power, which with nothing much between. The observable universe contains about 10 to the 78 particles. The age of the universe is about 10 to the 39 atomic time units, i.e. the time for light to traverse an atom. I'm going to get my daughter real quick. Let the world see. It's bedtime. Say hi. Say hi. Oh, see, she cried. She didn't want to go to bed. She wanted to come and play with Daddy. So what causes the Earth to expand, honey? My first answer is that I do not know. Empirically, I am satisfied that the Earth is expanding. Second answer is that I may not necessarily be expected to know. The answer could only be expected to be known if all relevant fundamental physics is already known. For example, in the controversy between Kelvin, master physicist of his generation, who limited the age of the Earth to some 100 million years, and Geikie, the geologist who knew empirically that much longer time was needed, most geologists wilted before the physicist's heat. If Geikie, whom we now know to have been right, had been required to guess at the real cause armed with the full knowledge of physics of his time, he would almost certainly have failed to predict radioactivity in the transmutation of elements. Had he done so, he would not have been believed. Again, not now admit that Wagner's 1924 reconstruction of the gross dispersion of the continents from his Pangea to their present configuration was essentially correct. But the best physical explanation he could offer was demonstrably deficient, with the result that his Pangean baby was thrown out with his spurious bathwater. It would be nice to know with certainty the cause of expansion, but the lack of this knowledge must not in itself invalidate expansion. As a third answer, I state the boundary conditions suggested by my empiricism. These may exclude some suggested solutions and hopefully point the way to the right solution. The expansion has continued throughout the whole history of the Earth. Well, the rate has accelerated with time, perhaps exponentially. This does not necessarily exclude a constant cause, as the acceleration could result from feedback, as in the ascent of a salt dome. The surface expression has pulled with time with a modulation the order of a couple of 100 million years. Though this pulse rate may not have been constant, this does not exclude a constant cause. A feedback mechanisms within the Earth might modulate a steady cause. The surface expression is asymmetric with respect to axis, hemisphere, and octant. This may also be due to feedback. The surface temperature of the Earth has allowed water at the surface at least for the last 3 aeons. 1 second. baby. Is she tired? We all get cranky when we get tired, don't we? The surface temperature of the Earth, so due to feedback, the surface temperature of the Earth has allowed water at the surface at least for the last 3 eons, and some glaciation for at least 2 eons. Variation of gravity acceleration at the surface has not been recognized, although no critical test has yet been proposed. Wide variation of gravity seems improbable, but a value as low as that now pertaining on the surface of Mars, or even less, or similar variation in the other direction, is not excluded by any fact yet stated. A lower limit for 3 eons is set by the fact that the Earth has retained its atmosphere since that time. Limits are set by the evidence of the past rate of rotation of the Earth. However, a uniform terrella, which differentiates with time at a constant mass and constant volume, increases its rate of rotation, whereas a terrella which expands at constant mass and increasing volume decreases its rate of rotation. As the Earth has both differentiated and expanded through geological time, the sense and amount of change depends on relative magnitudes. If mass, tidal retardation, and atmospheric acceleration are added as variables, the limits are complex. The sun contributes only 1/50th of the angular momentum of the solar system, which puts constraints on hypothesis of varying gravity and mass. Orogenesis, continental dispersion, and polar wandering may all be related directly or indirectly to the prime cause. Now, there are several theories out there floating around today, I think, which might fit well into a cause. And my idea, just to go ahead and give you a spoiler alert, is related to plasma and the inner core of the Earth being like a piezoelectric plasmoid that is gold crystalline, and all of the pressure. So the innermost core of the Earth is solid gold crystalline structure that is being compressed by uranium and all the less dense elements from there on out, uranium, lead, etc. That pressure is creating a piezoelectric effect in the gold and the quartz, causing it to, in the diamond, turn into a plasmoid, and that creates heat, and it also generates alchemically elements. It creates elements. And then the Earth has to be homeostatic, so it has to disperse the heat, exchange the heat with the surface of the planet in order to not just, I guess, melt away or explode. And there's a lot to it that I don't know because the physics isn't there and my knowledge isn't there, but the theory seems to hold very much like a solid base of empiricism in my mind. It just feels right. And I know that doesn't sound empirical at all. It feels right, but logically it makes sense, I'll say. A source of sufficient energy is necessary. The same principle should be applicable at least to the terrestrial planets, if not more generally. A continuing source of water and carbon dioxide, but also of chlorine, nitrogen, and sulfur from the deep interior is needed to provide the accretion of seawater throughout geological time. But this same source must also provide new mantle material to fill the widening gaps between the continents right down to the core. Current models of the deep interior cannot meet this requirement if the specification is correctly stated. However, an inner core with composition similar to carbon chondrites, though necessarily in some metastable superdense state, could do so. Okay, I've never read this passage before. I had this book, I've never read it. And that's why it logically just makes sense, is because the way I determined it, deduced it, this guy did as well. It just makes sense. For such a source below the mantle, the causative phenomena fall beyond the range of laboratory experiments. Estimates of relevant temperatures in the deep interior are widely divergent. Chemical, atomic, here, let's go, inner Earth. Just like the images. The image of the images. Nice. Let's rock that because it looks good. The emerging light, Mikos from Inner Earth, Earth's Lost Firmament. We'll discuss that too. I have a great book right here, Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, which is an alchemical treatise as well. It handles all the elements. Verne was an occultist. Everything relates to you and I and the third eye that you need to pry open wide. All right, let's peer back inside. Chemical, atomic, and nuclear phenomena rest on theoretical models, so the discovery is inhibited by what we think we know. As only one category of seismic waves is transmitted, critical assumptions have to be made to separate density and elastic parameters. Geology textbooks commonly state as fact that the Earth has a liquid core some 3,000 kilometers below the surface. A few are more careful and say the core is fluid because the data are satisfied by any fluid, e.g. a highly compressed gas. No one raises any questions that the core is fluid. But as Daines has pointed out, this belief involves a critical assumption. Two kinds of earthquake waves travel through the Earth, shear waves and compressional waves, or as they call them nowadays, P waves, S or P waves. Both are recorded at the surface up to distances corresponding to a penetration of the Earth down to 3,000 kilometers, which left no doubt that the Earth behaved as an electric or an elastic solid to that depth. This discovery was surprising because hitherto all had assumed that the Earth's interior at relatively shallow depths was liquid. At relatively shallow depths was liquid, which supplied the lavas to volcanoes and accounted for isostasy and the oblate shape of the Earth. At penetrations below 3,000 kilometers, only one wave was recorded with a velocity intermediate between those of the two waves just above. Here at last was the expected liquid core, because a fluid does not transmit shear waves unless the frequency is so high that the material does not get time to flow. And the compression wave velocity should drop in a liquid because the effective rigidity of the material, which is zero for a fluid, is one of the components of velocity, of the velocity equation. Now, you take a level 1 geology course in college, they'll ram that kind of thing down your throat, and maybe you'll get it and come out with an understanding of like rigidity and the way the waves travel through the mantle. But really, you can take a Jello and water and then bang it with something on the side of a bowl, a ring of Jello with a bit of water in the middle of the bowl. Hit it and watch how the waves go through the Jello and the water. There's two different types of waves. So shake it up and down and then like move it back and forth kind of slowly. Those are the two different waves. S waves, when you're shaking it, that's a shear wave. Those supposedly won't go through the liquid unless it's too fast. Strike that whole thing. But something similar to that, you get the idea in your mind. Okay. Daines has reminded us that belief is not fact, but only plausible assumption. The core of a very high rigidity could satisfy the seismic data at least as well, if not better, than a fluid core. The single wave received through the core could have then been the shear wave traveling at increased speed because of the increased rigidity. The compressional wave would arrive at the antipode several minutes ahead of the first wave, now seen as the first arrival. But its amplitude would normally be so reduced by the strong reflection back into the mantle and by the strong dispersion within the core, both caused by very high rigidity of the core, that its amplitude would be below the normal threshold of microseisms. At each interface, the partition of the energy of a seismic wave between the several possible types of reflected and refracted waves is determined by the angle of incidence and by the elastic parameters of the two media. Daines has calculated the amplitudes of the several possible seismic phases at all distances and concludes that a very rigid core predicts the observed patterns of amplitudes rather better than does a fluid core. Of course, the fluid core is also involved in the interpretation of many other geophysical phenomenon, e.g. geomagnetism and the wobbles and nutations. But when these interpretations grew up, the fluidity of the core was taken for granted, It would be interesting to reinterpret these phenomena, starting with the assumption that the rigidity of the core was an order or more greater than that of the mantle. For example, suppose the rigidity to be 3 orders greater than that of the lower mantle, and the viscosity to be 10 to the 19 poises. It would still behave like a fluid to loads lasting a week or more, although appearing 10,000 times as rigid as steel to seismic waves. This could satisfy the mutations. The magnetic field has been explained in terms of a self-excited dynamo driven by thermal convection currents in the fluid core, producing the field according to principles of magnetohydrodynamics. So far, this is no more than a plausible guess, and it is conceivable that a new start could be made on interpretation of the Earth's magnetic field in terms of such phenomena as Hall currents and the high conductivities of the deep interior. My fourth answer is to test proposed solutions against the constraints. Solutions so far proposed include phase change in constant mass, secular decrease in the gravitation constant, secular increase in mass, secular change in E over m, the electrical and inertial magnitudes of the electron. And he gets into it. This is a whole category. Secular change. He analyzes everyone. Matter is created, quote, where it is lacking between galaxy clusters because it is lacking due to universal expansion. Is it expanding? Quasars are the manifestation of such creation. Matter is created sharing the universal genes of expansion, Wesson, 1973, who's discussed several aspects of growth of mass within the Earth. Also notes that continuous creation might also explain the unaccountably high neutron flux implied by the dynamics of the solar corona and the solar wind. On the other hand, growth of mass might be difficult to reconcile with isotopic data, which implies a common age for Earth, Moon, and meteorites, and all have existed as closed systems since formation. Now, the Oppenheimer Ranch Project just talked about this recently. Trying to keep up. No worries, bud. So he talked about it recently, and the Earth is also enlarging due to accretion from cosmic dust in the interstellar media. As we're traveling through the intergalactic media, our solar system is encountering dust and waves and etc. And now we're collecting all that on the ball of Earth, and he did some calculations, and it's something ridiculous, some redonkulous number that it would come out to be. So you have the creation of material from inside the Earth and the accretion of material from outside the Earth. And, there's a couple other theories as well that I could discuss. And the other person I will give credit to for discussing the expanding Earth theory and actually doing it before Diamond at the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, now that I think about it and remember, is See the Pattern on YouTube. He did a pretty darn good job, an excellent job, a fantastic job of discussing it. And that's where I would go with that. So I wonder if we ever got John McAfee back here. Let's redo it and see if he'll play. It doesn't matter anyways, I guess, because there's no volume over there. All right. Okay, so what do we talk about? Space weather. What's going on right now? California lakes refilling. The deadly quake, or the deadly floods of 1862 that wiped out and reshaped California. Oh, here we go. Here's one last thing. The clock shots, man. Here you go. Off-duty pilot takes over plane after captain becomes incapacitated mid-flight. He's in the back of the plane right now with the flight attendants, but we need to get him on an ambulance immediately, it said. On a flight out of Las Vegas, a pilot became incapacitated midair, forcing an off-duty pilot from another airline to step in. Their heroic passenger manned radio communication in the cockpit while the co-pilot flew the aircraft. A day earlier, a Southwest jet came within 200 feet of hitting a what? Crossing a runway right on the road. Ambulance driver, I said crossing 15R. I said crossing 15, right? These close calls came after Southwest catastrophic Christmas led to 15,000 cancellations. So you might consider shorting their stock. Let's see what Southwest Airlines stock. Southwest Airlines stock. That's not financial advice, by the way. I'm just saying it doesn't look good for the home team, though. I mean, if it, objectively speaking, their performance is not good, and they're already down 33 to 29. Let's go on the year. Yeah, trending down on the year thus far. From March of last year, $47 down to 29. I would say that their performance is indicative that it's going to go lower. The stock analyst says buy, 1 year price target 43. So they're saying it's going to bounce. 7 analysts say buy, 0 say sell. Huh. Well, I guarantee you, if planes start falling out of the sky because the pilots are stroking out from God knows what, there may be a concern. Although fundamentally speaking, all the analysts right now are saying is a good time to buy and go long. But yeah, you do you. All right. Thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. That's about all I can pull. An hour and a half is good for me. Yeah, I appreciate you all. I love you all. And tune in. I'm going to try to do the same thing again at the same time. I'll probably bump it to a later time so that I don't have to worry about my kids. I'm going to try to go 9:30 to 11. I'll live stream, and I know not everybody's going to make that, so it's going to be up, and you can watch the live stream after. I love to have viewers and interaction and an audience to discuss and talk about things with. So please tune in. It's great. It's fantastic. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you. Chill. Peace. Good night.